For metal.
Yeah.
No reason for all that. What's going on here? Oh. Like this? Well, that was found when it was full bore, so it's going to be good.
Alright, so we're ready to put some plywood on. This is called Advantech, and it's much better than regular plywood. It's kind of like an OSB, but it's a higher grade OSB. In my opinion, it's the best subfloor. To fasten this down, I'm going to use ring shank nails, 2.5 inches. I'm also going to put subfloor adhesive on. Advantech makes their own kind. Definitely gonna need it.
I'm dropping it.
That's good. One more. That's good.
go.
Boom. Should have got with the thumbs up.
We figured out that this side of the house, from here to here, which is about 23 feet, it's about 4 inches higher here than it is over there on those top plates. So let me show you what I mean. So right here is this blue line. This blue line is about 2.5 inches from the top plate right here. And that's a level line going all the way across here. You can see this, here's the blue line right here. And down here, look how far away that blue line is from the top plate. So I don't know if you can maybe see it here, but there's the blue line right there. That's just a level line that I put there for reference. And you can see just from here to there how much it's going downhill. So that means that this side of the house is much higher than this side of the house. I'm gonna have to set these rafters at this measurement because this is gonna be the lowest point. So my whole intention was to stay away from taking this roofing off, and what I was going to do was frame the rafters so they come right up to this plywood, so that when we put our new plywood in, it matches right up. But now we're going to be like 4 inches higher over there with the old roof over top of the new roof. So now that's going to have to extend a little bit down just to kind of blend it in. Hopefully when we're done you won't notice it too much. It's nothing that we did, but it's something to consider when you're pricing out an addition. This lumber company that I use has a Moffett that goes sideways down the road. So when you have long beams or anything that's long, they can bring it in sideways down the road and not have to worry about hitting the corners or anything like that. It's easier for him to bring this through here than to bring the truck in, unless he has a lot to unload with the truck. Those are 18-inch LVLs for the valleys. They're going to be doubled up.
Now this is nothing because we don't have a top plate.
It ain't going anywhere near the top plate.
sure you're gonna have to come my way a bit. Okay.
No, I almost wonder if it wouldn't be better just to lay it flat until I get it up there. It's flat.
Can you do it enough? No. Go ahead and what? Beat nuts, whatever. Don't look right.
Alright.
Nope. I'm not fitting here.
Just leave it there for a second. I'm good. Just push my way about a half an inch and that's good. Keep going.
Did that do anything?
Yeah.
Keep going. Hold on, let me use the real hammer.
Keep going. I might be hitting something.
That's perfect right there, boy.
You slide the bottom out just a little bit. Yep, right there. Don't get no better than that, boy. Tell me that this cut is beautiful.
probably gets the first one, but.
So you don't do anything from there. It's gonna be that long.
Is that gonna be flush with the town?
Eight more is fine.
Good. Nail it.
Nope, don't nail it.
Right there is where I want to be. Yep, that would be I'm gonna take care. Good, nail it.
Concrete.
brightstratton.edu.
Okay, so we're pretty much done with the framing. So let me give you a little tour of it. So this is the front door. You walk in. This is a little mud area to take off your shoes. And then this is the stairway to go down into the basement. So over here, we framed in a little closet or like a pantry. The idea is that this whole area is going to be a dining area. And then along this wall is going to be cabinets, countertops, all the way to there. And either a peninsula or an island right here. So you can see we got these nice windows framed in. So the idea was to put as much light in here as possible because this is the north end of the house and this is the east and west. So the south is behind, and the south is where usually all the light comes in. So when you don't have a south-facing side, it's nice to have a little bit of extra glass to let in some extra light. So let me take you kind of back where we started on the framing, because I know I didn't do a great explanation as I was going. So down in the basement, there's still some water, and that's because we had 2 rainstorms while we were framing this. One wasn't that bad, but the other one was substantial. So we just opened up this area, so now it'll start evaporating. But this will be bone dry when it's done. But anyways, so we started off with the framing of the floor. This is 2x8s. And we got a 9.5-inch LVL doubled up for the girder. So the span for these 2x8s is only about 8 foot, like 8.5 foot. And so we put blocking halfway, or about 4 feet. That's about the minimum that you want. And so you can see that I got some adhesive coming out here. So the whole thing with that is that this flooring is great. Advantech is some of the best subfloor that you can use. Basically like a polyurethane based foam, kind of like great stuff. And you guys probably noticed that when we applied it, it immediately flattened out. But what you didn't see was once it flattened out and before it set up fully, it expands again. So you have about a 15-minute window to nail it down. So what we did is we used ring shank nails, and then after that, we're gonna screw it down. When we get a rainy day again, we'll just screw down the whole thing in between the nails. So it'll be screwed, nailed, and have adhesive on it. So we used hangers to hang it from everything. And we have this ledger board here with these 1/2-inch lags going into the concrete. And the quickest way to install these joist hangers is to basically, what we do is just use nails and put like 2 or 3 nails in it and then go back afterwards and put the hanger on once it's already hung. You just don't want to like put too much weight on it until you have the hangers on, but that's a lot of times how I do it because it's quicker. So we have a beam pocket here in the concrete, and by code you have to have a 1/2-inch space between any non-pressure treated wood and the concrete. So what we did is leave a 1/2 inch around all sides. The side and the back and the bottom. And the bottom has some steel shims. That's a good practice. That's a good way to get it off of the concrete. Plus you can get it more exact like that. So we have this framing here for the opening, and it's resting on this wall, and so it stiffens it up a lot, because this is only a double up 2x8, which is fine by code, but this helps stiffen it up, but I'm not relying on it. So we have this 6x6 post in here to hold up midspan, and in the basement here we only have 7 foot to here, but that's okay. 7 foot is more than enough. The joists are even higher than that. The joists are about another 2.5 inches higher. After we framed the floor, then we moved on to frame the walls. And the walls are pretty basic, 2x6. We put blocking in between. And then what I did was frame up the 8-foot walls, and then I let the customer see what I had left for space on top, and then we decided on these windows here. And these are just going to be stationary windows that are going to be custom. And so we'll install those once we get them. So once the walls were up, we installed the ridge beam. That established our main height for the roof, the common rafters on that gable. And then we installed these valley beams, which are 18 inches, doubled up. Once we installed these beams, then we were able to put the common rafters in first, which those are the ones that go all the way. And then these rafters right here are called valley jack rafters. Valley jack cripple rafters actually is what they're called. So I just call them valley jacks. And once you know the difference between one and the other, you can just keep cutting that on the ground without having to measure in between. So that's nice. And you probably saw that when we were making the cuts, like for instance, this cut right here is 64 degrees on the bevel, on the saw, which you can't cut on a normal saw. So you saw me use that shim to adjust it even more. And then obviously the saw can't cut through all the way because it's not deep enough. So then you take a Sawzall and you continue the cut after you cut it with the skill saw. So that's kind of that. And this beam, in case you guys were wondering, we can just cap that with some 1-bys and make it look like a real wood solid beam instead of a laminate. Or you can put sheetrock over it too. One or the other, you can make it look good. It's not really ideal to do this because it's sticking down further than everything else. It makes it harder to finish, but the LVL company spec this, and you can't go less than what they spec because we have a 60-pound snow load here, so it's important to design your beams good enough to support that. So this ledger board up here, I'm going to suggest to the customer that what we can do is, because you can see there's some burned, some charred wood up there. So I'd like to further the whole wall out to this plane all the way down, and that will support that ledger board up there as well as give you a nice surface to work with here, because these studs are kind of all over the place because this house is 200 years old. It was built in 1820. So furring this out would give you a nice straight wall to work with, as well as it would support the roof. So originally this was only going to have a 3-pitch shed roof, so it was all going to be pitched like this. And then I got on AutoCAD and I did a couple different designs and I showed the customer, and he really liked this one where it came out with a gable. So that's what we did. We got some collar ties up there. Mainly those collar ties are to hold the rafters together so that you don't have any uplift, but also it helps for like a chase and an area for lights and fans to be and stuff, because otherwise you'd have to hang it off the ridge beam, which is not ideal because then the wires are exposed. So we have on the outside we have the zip board, and we have some special things coming along with that in some later videos. I'll show you guys a really good system to use for this whole house. So we went with, what I did originally is I designed it where the gable was going to be coming all the way out, but then I got thinking about it, and basically if you do that, all the water is being filtered or funneled right into that corner, and then it just downpours into that area. And so we actually had a lot of rain yesterday, and you can see that it dug the ground out pretty good. But what I did was design it so that this overhang here is about 4 feet, and what that does is allows a substantial amount of gutter to be there so that it doesn't interfere with the flow of it. Basically, if you just have a small little like 1 foot gutter on the end, if this gable came all the way out to the end, then it would be so easy for that to clog up, and then it would be backed up instantly. And that happens from leaves and trees and debris and whatever else. So it's nice to have this little bit of return, I guess you could call it. And then I also put this return right here too. And then always on a gable end, I put returns on. See how that is? So I normally put a bigger overhang than this, but I'm kind of matching what they have over here. And right now it's not exactly matching, but it will when it's done. So you guys probably saw us frame up this window here, and then we stood it up, and then there were some changes made, so we had to put in 2 windows instead of 1, and the other window was centered here, so we kind of had to redo the framing. But it's actually really easy to redo the framing, and I'll show you guys a couple tricks of how we do that. When you're trying to reframe something, as long as you're still in the early stages, it's not such a big deal. All you have to do is take a hammer and bang out on one of the corners to get a little bit of space in between here, and then you stick a thin Sawzall blade in there, which I'm a really big fan of those thin Sawzall blades. They cut really quick, and once you stick that in there, you just buzz it up and cut the nails, and then you can take the OSB or plywood, or in this case the zip board, away from the studs easily. And same thing when you want to take out a stud, you just zip it with a thin Sawzall blade, you cut the nails, and then it'll come right out of there. So we made this change, but that was really no big deal. So what we did on this framing for the staircase here is put a ceiling on it, and that way, instead of going all the way up, because then the light would be trapped inside of there, so now the light can come over top of that ceiling there and still shed quite a bit of light in here. We also have this post here that goes up all the way and supports the valley beams and the ridge beam, and that goes right down onto the foundation that we put in. So that's posted up pretty solid. And then over here on this side, what we did was post right through the top plate and up to the top. That makes a much stronger gable end than to just take that post and frame it from the top plate up, because then you kind of have like a hinge point right there. So it's much better to run it right through like we did this. At the top where I framed in these windows, I still have to put a couple nailers up there, but basically I'm also going to have, see, I spaced it down about 5.5 inches from the top, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to put trim around this window. So I'd use a 2x6. So then I'm going to, on the flat, on the bottom, I'm going to put another nailer, and then you'll be able to put insulation in that little area. It's kind of important to put insulation wherever you can, because studs don't insulate that well. They do have some insulation value, but it's not that great. So the next video on this project is going to be the roof, and we're also going to re-roof the other part of the house too. So that'll be the next video, and then after that we'll do some waterproofing, installing windows, flashing. We're going to do soffit and fascia. So the venting for this project is going to be a little different than you normally would see, and I'll get into that on a later video. And it's very important to vent unless you're gonna do spray foam, but I'll get into that and I'll show you how we're gonna do it on this. But for now, I'm gonna get going on the roofing so that this can be dried in.